Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Alan Thomas with Rethink Dieting, part of Transform My Future Coaching, and it is day number 6490, where I'm doing a Facebook Live daily that really talks about the idea about weight loss, especially for men. And for those of you that this is the first time watching any of my videos, a little bit about my story. I'm 58 now, but 3 years ago when I was 55, on March 2nd, day after my 31st wedding anniversary, I stepped on the scale and looked down and saw 304 pounds. I am not 11 feet tall. I am 5'11", and I was like, wow. And at the time, I'd been selling life insurance for about a decade and been in literally thousands of homes. My primary market was senior adults, and that's people over the age of 65 predominantly. And I could not ever remember meeting a man 65 years old that was 100 pounds overweight. And I was like, holy smokes, I've got less than 10 years to live is what went through my brain. And I was thinking about, I was going to be known as my wife's first husband, the guy that died. And while I don't think she's out shopping around yet, I hope not. I hope we're going to be together for the next 40 years, 50 years. We've been together 34. But, I was thinking, my kids are going to likely be calling another man dad. They were from 15 to 27 years old. My grandkids, which, I don't have any yet, but, they'd be calling somebody else grandpa. And this purpose that I believe I was put here on earth for, I was not going to get to live out. It was going to be somebody else's task to do what I was supposed to do. And so it really, when you're 55 or 58 for that matter, I mean, you feel like you're really young at heart. And, our bodies, I know, can tend to wear down, but there's no reason in my mind that I couldn't see why could I not get my weight off. And I had been on dozens of diets. I don't know if I ever eclipsed 100 diets that I tried, but I tried pills. I tried, diet type pills and the stuff over the counter and the stuff you see advertised on the internet and the stuff on TV and, all the, the different weight loss plans. I tried most of them 2, 3, 4 times. If somebody had some success, well, let me try that again. And I'd try and I'd try and I'd try. And it was always, the sticking to it. I could do it for a week or a month or maybe even 2 or 3 months and lose 10, 20 pounds, but I'd turn right around and I'd gain it all back. And it just was this hopeless feeling because the stage I was getting to was really embarrassing. It was the stage of, being so obese that your kids were starting to leave you notes about your weight. They're starting to, ask questions and things that it's on their mind. They're wondering, if I'm going to be around, if I'm going to be alive. And I was literally in a prison of my own making. I mean, to get on an airplane and have to ask a stewardess for an extra seatbelt because you're too obese for the seatbelt. To always have to have the center seat because the other one's just too tight. I had to have room to stretch out. To, whenever if we were at a theme park, no reason for me to try to get on those rides because those rides were too small. The seats were too small. To go and walk into a room and feel like people were staring at me because they were looking, oh my God, that guy's huge. And, I would console myself with this comparison that, when you walked into a room, I would always look to see if there was somebody fatter than me. And usually there was, but as I kept getting fatter and fatter, just really was getting harder to find that person that was bigger than me. And it was really a feeling of hopelessness. And, it was, I just couldn't stick to anything. And then, like I mentioned in the title of today's, have you got that uncle so-and-so or that aunt so-and-so that's always giving you advice? And people would tell me, oh, you got to do something about your weight. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Well, I was trying. I mean, oh my gosh, trying, was the key, the operative word. and it just couldn't seem to overcome it. And it was just this big challenge in my life. But when I saw that scale at 304 pounds, something clicked in me. And I realized that other people had done it. Other people had gotten weight off. And so I publicly committed to reaching 175 pounds by November 22nd, 2017. Now that's 265 days, if my math's right, between March 2nd and November 22nd. And it was interesting. I had most everybody encouraged me, but I had one person in particular, I don't even know him personally, discouraged me. But it was the power of the decision. It was the power of a lot of what I learned along the way that I didn't expect to learn. It wasn't that it was a particular diet. I mean, the diet that I used, the eating plan I used, I don't like the word diet. First three letters are die, D-I-E. That's no fun. But it wasn't the particular eating plan I used. If it had been that, I would have already had my weight off. I'd failed on it, I don't know, 5, 6, 7. I lose count because I would try them over and over. I would go to those meetings for that one weight loss company that's a great program. Lots of people lose weight on it. But I was going back and forth and just staying the same. And was it ever the diet? All the advice that Uncle so-and-so and Aunt so-and-so, and my uncles and aunts, we don't talk that much because we live in another state, but I'm just using that as an example because, somebody I talked to today had a situation. But those family members who were giving me the advice, they were giving me advice. They just didn't understand where I was. And I didn't really, it would frustrate me. It would make me mad. It mostly was just embarrassing that I could do all these things. I was pretty successful in my work always. I'd owned my own businesses. I'd been successful in selling, management, but I couldn't get this thing called weight under control. How just hopeless you feel when you're in that situation. And maybe you can relate to this. If you're a guy watching this that's got 50 or 100 or 200 pounds or 300 pounds to lose, it's just like, why bother? You get that feeling. So when that relative comes to you and they're well-meaning, and they've got, a plan that they could put you on, and they've got all these things, they don't know where you're coming from. I would go into gyms, and I would, join, fitness programs, and the guy would be in there and he'd be telling me all these things to do. But did he ever really walk through it? Did he ever really have an answer? And most of those guys, they might have lost 5 pounds one time, and they were all of a sudden an expert on weight loss. And so it was always this thing of how they don't really understand me. And really the only person that was important that understood me was myself. And so over that 260-day period, I found my way through the wilderness of obesity. I used a weight loss plan that had failed on a bunch, like I said. But was it really the weight loss plan that was the answer? Sure, you gotta, and I say this every night, you gotta change the way you eat. You've got to change the way you move, your exercise and food. But I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, a dietitian, or physical fitness expert. I'm just a guy who was morbidly obese. I was over middle age, because 55 is over middle age. There was really not a lot of hope that most people would say that I had. They would say, you're probably going to die fat. Well, I sit here today 3 years later, and I'm not fat anymore. And I haven't been in a long time. And, it's, of course, when you start losing weight, people say, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? They want that magic formula, just like I was always looking for. I'll never forget one lady in my insurance business. She was a very sweet individual, very kind person, and I know what it's like to be obese. And this lady was morbidly obese, probably 5'8", probably 450 to 500 pounds easily. and we were talking, and she's found out that I'd lost a bunch of weight. I didn't tell her. She just saw an older picture of me and said, "Oh my gosh, you lost a lot. How'd you do it?" And I used to give Band-Aids to people, but she had a gaping wound. And I just said, "Well, I tried this and this," and she was eating a bag of potato chips, and just like I'd done plenty of times while she was asking me how to lose weight. And she said to me, I'll never forget these words. She says, "Oh, I can't give up my sandwich." And I wasn't telling her what to do, but she was saying that's the reason she couldn't lose weight. She could not give up sandwiches. And she was on oxygen. She had diabetes that was starting to get to the point where she had type 2. This is type 2 is very different than type 1, but type 2 being, that the majority of people, I believe the statistics are 95% of people who have type 2 diabetes are obese or morbidly obese. And she wasn't willing to change. That's what she was saying to me. I'm like, wow. And I knew where she was. She just didn't think she could, so she gave up. But, what I would say to anybody listening to this is you can change. Do you need a diet? A way to eat? Yeah, you need one, or you need to figure out one. Do you need to do some exercise? Yeah, you need to do something safely. Start moving your body. Be healthier. Do you need that? Yeah. How important are those two factors? Well, they're almost useless without the power to stick to it. I mean, they really are useless. If you don't have the power to stick to it, it's absolutely a waste of time. And the 260-day journey that I went on was all about getting the power to stick to something. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just fat, and I was determined, and I was not going to quit. And, I proved, I stuck to my eating plan 100%. I mean, 100%. And people say, "Well, how do you do that? You can't do that." Well, no, you probably can if you believe that way. But when I realized the process to get the power to stick to something, it changed everything. So I could have stuck to any diet. I could have stuck to anything. And I say that very confidently. I like the plan I used, but I could have stuck to something else. It would have probably worked too. So that while the diet and the exercise, they're important, and you can ask your doctor about what the best one for you is, or some medical professional, somebody that's got a lot more certification than me. But I talk to men all the time that come into my program that the doctor didn't have an answer for them. My doctor didn't have one for me. He's a perfectly good doctor. He didn't have an answer for me either. And in fact, it's interesting. He asked me about dieting. He's not overweight. I don't believe he's ever had a weight problem, but he wants to know how I can help his other patients. And so I say this not to impress you about anything that I've done, because I was just a miserable failure at taking care of my body. But if you're a man that has struggled with your weight, and you just really have just about lost hope, but you've got a little bit of fire left in you where you think there's a chance, I would say be encouraged. If you've given up, I can't help you. But if you haven't given up, and you know that what one man can do, another man should be able to do. And if you're really sick and tired of being sick and tired, like I was just so tired of being fat. I was so tired of the embarrassment. And I wanted a different life. If you're at that point, reach out to me and schedule a breakthrough call. It's and it's in the caption here, but it's www.transformmyfuture.com/apply. It's TRANSOR transform TRANSFORMMYFUTURE.com/apply. And you'll go to my calendar, and you can schedule a breakthrough session. It's a 45-minute session that I take time out to help men get clarity and see if we can get you unstuck, and also to see if you're right for my program. A lot of people come to me and want to be part of the program. Everybody that comes to me is not a fit for my program. And so I always, when I'm talking to men, I'm really interviewing you to see if it's a fit. Because if you're not sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's not going to work. Nothing will. Or if you've completely given up, you can't give up. So I would say to you, be encouraged. Don't give up. Because there's a way through the wilderness of obesity. I tell guys all the time, I was the worst of the worst. I was not, you name it, I ate it just about. I mean, it was alarming how much I ate, how much it controlled me. But it doesn't control me now. And because I completely rethought the dieting process. So if this resonates with you, share this with somebody who struggles with their weight. Share it with them, because my dream is to help men lose 1 billion pounds. And say, that's a crazy number. Well, gosh, we're crazy fat in this country and in the rest of the world. And so men are losing weight. They're getting their hopes back. They're getting their dreams back. They're being there for their family. And I get to watch it every day from the front row seat, and it's a blast. So I'll see you guys tomorrow night. I'm Alan Thomas for Rethink Dieting. And go to transformmyfuture.com/apply and schedule a breakthrough call with me. And you guys have a great night.